Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we collect some seeds. So let's go. It is early fall. It is a perfect time to go on a hunt to look for flower seeds. Or maybe you're hunting for vegetable seeds. There are so many seeds that you can collect, and you can save money when you collect your own seeds. I've been collecting seeds for many years, and it's taken me a long time to really figure out what is a seed pod that I can collect from all different types of plants. In fact, a big reason why I love to make videos for you that show you the process for collecting seeds from different plants is because I had a hard time myself finding a channel on YouTube where someone shows lots of different plants and how to collect the seeds from those plants. I have a whole playlist that shows you how to collect the seeds from various plants. What I'll do is I'll link it in the description below as well as up above. When it comes to collecting seeds from any plant, it's important to know a couple of things. First of all, if you want the seeds that create a plant to look identical to the parent plant, you want to make sure you're collecting the seeds from either an open-pollinated or an heirloom plant. If you're collecting the seeds from a plant that was a hybrid, that plant may still produce seeds for you, but the plants that come from those seeds may not look identical to the parent. I'm a home gardener. Personally, I don't care about that. In other words, I have two dahlias here, two different colors. And we're going to be collecting the seeds from one of the dahlia plants. The plant that gets produced might not look identical to this plant. It may be a cross between these two plants. I find that fun. In fact, you can make your own dahlia plant and you could name it if you want to. Next, I prefer to collect seeds if it's not a very windy day, and I also prefer to collect my seeds when the seeds are dry on the plant itself. However, the reality is there might be times when you're at, let's say, someone's house, or you're at a park, and you want to collect the seeds, and the seed pods are wet because it's raining that day, or maybe it rained the day before. You can still collect the seeds. The biggest thing is, no matter what, make sure you fully dry those seeds out before you store them. There are a lot of different ways to store your seeds. Many people like to store their seeds in a paper bag or a paper envelope. And the reason is because the paper absorbs some of the water. I've been storing my seeds for many years in plastic bags, and that process works for me. You don't have to do that though. You can use whatever you feel comfortable with. Again, the biggest thing is make sure that those seeds are fully dry. The final thing I want to share is when you're collecting your seeds, make sure you're collecting them where they have fully ripened on the plant. I don't like to pull off a seed pod that's half ripe, bring it inside, and then hope and pray that that seed pod will then ripen off of the plant and produce viable seeds. Sometimes it works, many times it doesn't work. I prefer to pull off seed pods that are fully ripe on a plant, which is again why I like to make videos to show you what to look for a seed pod that is ripe. I love this dahlia and I want more of it. I do plan on saving the tubers and dividing the tubers in order to propagate the plant, but I also like to propagate the plant through seed. I'm pointing to a flower bud, and that flower bud will eventually turn into a flower, so we're going to leave that alone. What I'm pointing to now is the beautiful blossom. We're going to leave that alone because we want to enjoy the blooms for as long as possible. And now I'm pointing to a flower that has already gone by. In other words, it has a spent bloom on it. I could do one of two things. I could deadhead it, meaning remove the spent bloom, which tells the plant to put more energy into flowering, or I can leave the spent bloom on there and let it go to seed. Now what I'm pointing to is a bloom that has already gone by, and now the plant is starting to go to seed. And that's a seed pod that is starting, but notice that it's green. It is not ready for us to collect yet. Now, if I wanted to deadhead the plant, because let's say that I don't want the plant to go to seed and I want it to keep blooming for me, I would go ahead and I would follow it down to a flower bud. So right there is a small flower bud. Let's go ahead, we'll follow this down, and we're just going to cut it back with our fingers. Normally I would use hand pruners to deadhead my dahlias, and I would go ahead and cut it down right up to the flower bud. That's an example of a flower bud that has completely dried up and gone by and has now gone to seed. I want you to see the color of it. It's more of a brown color, and in fact even the stem itself has turned brown. So let's go ahead and harvest the seed pod. And here's another one. It's pretty small, but you can see again that it's a brown color. Let's harvest this one as well. I love deadheading my dahlias because the more you deadhead them, the more they bloom for you. And that tells the plant not to go to seed and instead to keep blooming. However, if you want to collect the seeds from your dahlia plant, you can continue deadheading it if you want, but just make sure to not deadhead a few spent blooms, specifically so that you can collect the seeds of that plant if that's what you want to do. I also plan to collect the seeds from this dahlia plant, which is a different color, and I was noticing that there is a seed pod that I can collect, but I'm going to come and get that on a different time because I'm going to put it in its own bag and I'm going to label the bag with the color of this flower. I have a bag and I labeled it Dahlia Hot Pink with a yellow center. It's an unwind mix dwarf variety of seed and the year that I collected the seed. I like to put the year that I collected the seed because after each year goes by, seeds lose their viability. They're not as fresh and they're not going to germinate as well. And that's just a close-up of what the seed pod looks like. So let's go ahead and just open up the seed pod. Fortunately, it's pretty dry. And as I'm doing this process, you can easily see the seeds. They're this nice dark color. Another indicator that these seeds should germinate for me is the color of the seed. They're a dark color. They're almost black. If the seeds were a green color, that would mean that they are not ripe and they will most likely not germinate for me. What I like to do with my dahlia seeds is I like to basically separate the seeds from the non-seed material, which is called chaff. You could definitely store both if you wanted to. But if you have a small bag like I do here, then I don't want my whole entire bag filled with the non-seed material. So what I will do is I will actually just leave all this for about a week. And then after a week, I'll go ahead and I can separate out the seed from the non-seed material. I will throw away all the non-seed material and all the seed will get placed in the bag. I've only just started to separate the seeds out, but it's amazing that each seed will create one plant. So you can see that you really only need 1 or 2 seed pods. And I do recommend gathering more than 1 seed pod, just in case for whatever reason the seeds that are inside that seed pod are no good. It's always better to have a little bit extra just in case. The other thing I want to mention about dahlia seeds is you'll eventually sow these seeds, and I have videos that show how to sow dahlia seeds. I'll link it down below. When the plants form, they actually will create tubers, and then you can overwinter those dahlia tubers. So that's a really fun fact about dahlias started from seed. After 1 week, and when the seeds have dried, I'll use this folded piece of paper to easily funnel the seeds off of the paper into my open bag. Let's tackle the next plant. These are Beacon Impatiens, and they're a mix. I love growing Beacon Impatiens in my yard. I've been doing it for a number of years, and I love to grow them from seed. So these are some seeds that we recently collected. And I showed you in a previous video my process for collecting the seeds. I'll put a link to it down in the description below. So what we're going to do is we're just going to funnel some of the seeds off of here into this bag because a number of days have gone by. But I can tell you that these seed pods that have started to shrivel up still feel a little wet to me. So I don't want these to go inside of this bag because, again, I don't want the seeds to rot. So I'll go ahead and throw these away. And then the seeds that are in the folded piece of paper can be funneled off of the paper into the bag. We also have some coneflower or echinacea that we collected together. Let's go ahead and do the same thing. We're just going to funnel the seeds into this bag. These seeds have been drying for a number of days, so they're ready to be stored. And it's really up to you if you want to separate the seeds from the non-seed material. To be honest with you, it's a lot of work for me, and I don't care to do it right now. You could definitely do that. Just know that this right here, these are coneflower seeds. And then this right here, these are non-seed material. If I was to sow all of this out in my landscape, or if I was going to start them indoors, only the seeds would germinate. The non-seed material would not germinate. I find that with certain seeds, it's just easier or satisfying to separate the seed and non-seed material. But then there are other plants that I feel like it's just not worth the effort. When it comes to coneflower, at this point, I just want to store it. I want to put it away. I have a lot of seeds I'm collecting this time of year, and it would be very time consuming for me to come in and separate and pull out only the seeds. It's just not worth the effort right now. In terms of how many seeds you want to save, it's totally up to you. I have a mix of different coneflower here, So the seeds in this seed pod might be different than the seeds in this seed pod, and those might be different than the seeds in that seed pod. So for that reason, I'm actually going to keep all of the seeds from each of these seed pods. That's a lot of material there to fit in this little bag. So what I started to do was just pull out some of the bigger pieces that I know I don't need, and those can go in the trash. And I can just do a very quick sifting and pull out any big pieces that I know are the chaff. But if I was to go through this whole pile and again pick out each of those small little seeds, it would just take so long. So it really is up to you and what you want to do. It's a personal preference. I'd rather just come in and pull out these bigger pieces. That is just so much more manageable. I very, very quickly pulled out the big pieces that are the non-seed material. And now I'm left with seed as well as smaller pieces of the non-seed material. And just like that, we filled up this little bag. It's chock full of a whole bunch of coneflowers, different mixes of coneflowers in different colors. With the remainder of the seeds, I can create another bag, or I can just scatter these out in the landscape and they'll germinate next spring for us. Another seed that we collected the other day and is dry and ready for us to store is Gomphrena, or globe amaranth. And a fun fact is I never bought these seeds. I collected the seeds from a local park. In fact, I love collecting seeds not only from my garden, but other people's gardens. It could be family members, friends, neighbors, but even local parks or downtown where you live, some of the container pots that might be there. There are so many flower seeds you can collect. In fact, even where my kids go to college, many times they have very pretty planters there, and I've collected seeds from there as well. And I showed you in a previous video what to look for when collecting your Gomphrena seeds, but that's a close-up of what the seed pod looks like. So you usually want to wait until they've turned this color, kind of like a tan color. And this little furry thing is actually the coating, and inside of the coating is the seed. But I don't take out the seed out of this. I just call this the actual seed for Gomphrena. And I have videos showing my process on how to sow the seeds of Gomphrena, so I'll link that down below as well. But I like showing you the next steps in seed collecting, because together we did collect the seeds of Gomphrena, but now that some time has passed, it's ready for me to go ahead and store these. I figure we might as well do these type of chores together. So I have a separate piece of paper here. I can just put the non-seed material on this paper. With this non-seed material, I can go ahead and this can just go in my trash. I love Gomphrena and I will be seeding many more of this plant next year. I would like it all over my garden. It looks so pretty. I would say late spring into the summer months, and here we are early fall and it is still going strong. And if you're looking for a great plant for your garden, an annual, this is a really easy one to grow for major impact. And remember, all the seeds that you're collecting, make sure they're fully dry before you store them, no matter how you store them. I know some people even like to store seeds in glass jars, or they like to reuse their medicine bottles. Whatever you store it in, it really doesn't matter. What matters is the seeds have to be dry. I like to pack the bags as much as possible, especially for certain seeds like Gomphrena. This Gomphrena is a magenta purple color, but I did collect seeds of other Gomphrena last year. So this winter, I'll be starting those seeds as well because I want a variety. I want a lot of different colors. With a little bit of effort, I was able to fit all the seeds inside of this one bag. And then I can reuse this paper when I'm collecting some other seeds. Many of you have mentioned how you love the petunias that I have in my window boxes. Honestly, I really enjoy them as well. In fact, some of you have asked me what's the variety of petunias that are in these window boxes. The petunias that have the purple and yellow center to them with some striping, there's quite a bit of variation from plant to plant inside of all the window boxes that I have in the front here. And the seeds that I collected, I believe, were from a hybrid plant. And the reason I say I believe is because all of the plants are slightly different. None of them look the same. So we're going to collect the seeds from these petunias and we're going to see what they produce next year for us. So at first glance, they look very similar, don't they? But I can tell you when we go to a different window box that they are slightly different. So here we are at this window box and they just look a little different, and you can tell right here when you compare this one compared to that one. They're just a little different. And then you compare that one to that one. I don't mind it, but I get it that if you want all your petunias to look the same, then collecting the seeds from petunias might not be what you want to do. I will point out it's getting late in the season and I have stopped deadheading my petunia plants, which is why they are not looking as great as they could, because our season is coming to an end. And these petunias here were seeds that I bought from Dollar Tree. So that's also another option if you don't want to collect your seeds and you just want to grow petunias from seed and you don't want to spend a lot of money. I have videos showing the process for deadheading petunias. I'll put it down below. But this right here is an example of a petunia bud, and eventually it will bloom. And when it blooms, it will look like this. Once the bloom has faded and gone by, it's going to look like this right here. Now, if you deadhead your petunias, they will never go to seed. They will keep blooming for you. But if you stop deadheading your petunias, eventually it will go from this stage to this stage. But this stage is still very premature. It has not quite produced a seed pod for us yet. And here we have a seed pod, but notice that it's green color. We can't collect it. It's not ripe yet. Now this seed pod, I want you to see the color. It's more of a brown color. This we can go ahead and collect. If we leave it on here for too long, what will happen is all the seeds will drop. So there's that fine line of waiting but not waiting too long. So let's go ahead and harvest this seed pod. And this one as well. And here's another one. It's funny, I look at them, they look like a little dolphin with their mouth open. It will be fun to see what we get next year because it might be a cross between something like this mixed with something like this. But I think that's what makes gardening a lot of fun. In this example, the seed pod was facing down. So you can see that the seeds are just all getting released. But let's go ahead and save the seeds. So I created a bag and I just wrote down Petunia, and it's grape purple with a yellow stripe, and the year that we collected the seeds. A common question I get asked when collecting Petunia seeds is, what about proven winter plants like Supertunias? Those plants are hybrids. In other words, if you collect the seeds off of them, don't expect them to look like the original plant. But it's still fun to do, and to be honest with you, there's a chance when I collected these seeds from a park that the plants that we had this year were from a proven winners plant, and I thought they were very pretty. And I want you to see that even though this part of the plant is green, when you look inside, the actual seed pod is more of a brown color. The key is not only do you want the seed pod to be that light tan or brown color, you want the seeds to be dark brown, almost a black color. And I'm just releasing the seeds just like this. They're on the leaf, so I'm just taking them off of the leaf. This green material of the petunia is sticky, so just know that. It's not a big deal. But I'm just squeezing the seed pod in my hand. And when I do that, look at all the seeds. And again, each seed will create a plant. You really don't need that many seeds. In fact, we've collected more than we need for next year. I'll wait a week. I'll release the rest of the seeds from the seed pod. I can throw away any of this non-seed material, and then I'll funnel the seeds off of the paper into my Ziploc little bag. Just for the fun of it, what I do plan to do this year is I will be collecting the seeds off of this Proven Winner plants, which is Hoopla Vivid Orchid. It's a Supertunia. So there are a couple of seed pods right there. So I will collect those and I will label it with the name of this plant, knowing that they're not going to produce plants that look identical or even act the way a Supertunia acts. But I think it would be a fun experiment for us. So I plan on collecting those seeds. And then another Supertunia, this is Bubblegum Vista. We will also collect the seeds from this. And again, I will label the bag so that we know what they are, with the expectation that they will not act like a Supertunia. They might have a pretty pink flower on them, but they definitely will not act like as nicely or bloom as nicely as a Supertunia plant does. But you know me, I love experimenting, so I will definitely be collecting these seeds as well. And that's only if I can find the seed pods on this plant. I've been looking around and I'm not seeing the seed pods, but don't worry, I'll keep looking because sometimes it takes a while for these Supertunias, if they're going to do it, to produce their seed pods. I'll just keep on waiting. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope it encouraged you to start collecting seeds if you haven't already collected seeds. And if you're collecting a seed for the first time this year, I want to hear which seed it is. I'll be giving you updates as I collect more seeds, and also I'll be making a lot of videos on starting seeds, so be on the lookout for those videos. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.